This is serious. It's something that you need to know about because I guarantee a lot of you don't even know this exists. And I'm going to tell you today why it's so important. And we're going to highlight some things you probably would never have thought of and need to know during one of the most important times of yours and your loved ones' lives. Okay. And also the saddest. So today, my guest is an extraordinary entrepreneur and caregiver. She is what's called a death doula. And today we're going to talk about exactly what that is, why you want to have it, and some key things, like I said, that you probably don't know you need to know during this stage of your experience with yourself or your loved ones or both. So stay to the end. As you know, I do something very special for you. I have a gift for you. You can only get it if you stay to the end of the episode. And besides, you don't want to miss any of this because it's going to be full of information that you need to know. So you might not need it now, but you will need it one day. Because I can tell you one thing is for sure. Every single person that's watching this and not watching this is going to die. I know that sounds morbid. I promise this is not going to be a super sad, super morbid show. It's going to be informative, but it's true, right? So we need to know these things. We need to know what to do when the time comes. And if you or someone you love has someone in your life who is struggling and fighting cancer, like I do, and they're in late stages, then having someone like Nicole, who is a death doula, can be so beneficial to giving them a peaceful transition. And we all want that for our loved ones, right? So before I introduce her, let me give a very, very quick shout out to my sponsor. I'll tell you more about them at the end. But Mental Health Code is a organization that really is passionate about your mental health. And they are a bridge between your doctors and your therapists and all of these things. So I'm not selling you anything. I'm doing a public service. What I'd like for you to do is go to Instagram and go and check out Mental Health Code over on Instagram. Here you go. Follow them there and just see what it's about. They offer courses, they offer lots of things. And if it's something that might interest you, definitely get involved. And so without further ado, let me tell you about my guest. Hello there. Thank you for dropping your comments. That reminds me, if you're watching live, drop a comment. Let me know you're here. Ask questions. That's the beautiful part of being live, okay? You can be involved and be part of the conversation. So let me tell you about Death Doula Nicole, okay? I'll make this bigger so I can see it. So I'm going to read it because it's a lot, because I'm bringing quality to Hot Topics Live podcast, right? So Nicole is a former HR professional who felt a deep pull towards the death doula space after being the caregiver for several dying family members. Inspired by witnessing the challenges faced by those she loved at the end of life, she knew she found her calling. She pursued professional training and launched her own practice in 2025. Driven by her own experience with end of life planning and a natural ability to navigate difficult conversations, Nicole is committed to helping individuals experience a more peaceful and intentional transition. So, she works closely with the dying and their families to guide them through both the emotional and logistical aspects of end of life planning, from educating on advanced directives to legacy work, and continues to offer compassionate support after a loved one has passed away. So you can see how important this is, right? You can see that she is someone who can help you with things that you don't know that you even need yet for yourself or a loved one who is coming to the end of their life. So without further ado, let's bring her on.
Hi, Kia.
Hi, Nicole. Welcome to Hot Topics Live podcast. I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy that you're here.
Me
So,
too.
so let's talk about
Where do you
what
want to start?
let's talk about actually what a death doula is. Let's start there.
Sure. So a death doula, we work alongside hospice. We don't replace hospice. We're just that extra level of support. So as you can imagine, a family member, loved one, best friend gets a terminal diagnosis and really is floundering, rightfully so. There's a million different things going on. So hospice comes in. They have amazing services, but sometimes you just need that extra level of support from an emotional perspective. Sometimes you need help with logistical end of life planning. And sometimes you just want someone that is going to be there and sit and walk through their spiritual journey with you. And that's where a death doula comes in to provide that support.
So when I saw that you were a death doula, I got really excited because one of my dear friends, in fact, one of my best friends, her partner is terminal with cancer.
Sorry.
And yeah, it's difficult because we just adore him. And she told me that what had been giving her comfort was watching death doulas on YouTube. And I said, "Well, what's a death doula?" And I had no idea what it was. So I know if I am this many years old when I'm finding out what this is, I know a lot of people don't know. And so I want to know exactly how, other than giving comfort, right? Because we think of a doula who brings life into the world, but we don't think of a doula as someone who helps you transition out. So how does a death doula provide comfort for those who are transitioning?
Sure. So one thing that comes top of mind is that sometimes when we're younger, we're told to leave the nest, go out, explore the world, don't stay in your hometown. And so what happens is you uproot yourself and you move. And sometimes family isn't always there to support you at end of life. And so one thing that I instantly think about is, are those families that are dying alone. And no one should be dying alone. We've worked so hard in life. And to be alone is just absolutely sad. And so a doula can come into a home where there's not a lot of extra support and resources and literally sit side by side, holding hands, rubbing lotion on hands, um, offering some level of comfort care, whether that's bringing in essential oils, whether that's a task as simple as brushing hair. The little things that we take for granted, those are the things that come top of mind when I think about comfort care. Holding space,
Mhm.
listening, even if a loved one is surrounded by family. As a mom, I don't want to burden my children with all of my anxiety and emotions. And so I'm probably scared to death. Absolutely. And I don't want to burden my children with my own fears because they're processing their own emotions about the situation. And again, that's where I can come in and hold that space for those conversations, things that someone needs to get off of their chest, and maybe not burden the loved ones that they might feel that they are.
That makes so much sense to me because as a mom, we always think about we're going to protect our children, like whatever's going on that's like adult business. We don't tell our kids, like, if we lost a job or, you broke up in a relationship or whatever, unless it's going to deeply affect them, right? But you're always careful of how you talk to your kids about things and what information they get because you don't want to burden your children,
Right.
even your adult children. So this
Absolutely.
makes so much sense because I mean, I think as certain as we know that we're going to transition to the next level of existence or whatever that is for you, um, we know that we're going to be scared. Like fear is going to come into the equation at some point as we near that moment. So, what are some of the ways that you do try to help people ease those fears?
It's really about listening. It's 100% listening. I just recently wrapped with a family, and ironically enough, she was a former hospice nurse. And so my heart actually felt incredibly blessed that a former hospice nurse would think to reach out to a doula. And I wasn't quite sure what to expect coming in. And so a lot of it was focused on navigating some difficult conversations that needed to be had. And some of it was she wanted to make sure her family knew what legacies she wanted carried on. Whether it was making sure that this year the house is decorated in all white Christmas lights versus multicolored, making sure that the kids and the grandkids, all of their Christmas presents are wrapped in the same paper, how the fireplace mantle is to be decorated. And we even talked about different foods that she wanted to make sure that the family was going to carry on. So, a shout out to pecan pie with caramel drizzle. I think I'm going to have that at my table this year just to carry on this beautiful soul's legacy. Oh, you're on mute.
My kids are home. So when they're noisy, I will mute myself. If you've been watching Hot Topics Live, you know that. If not, you're new to this. So so okay, what I was going to say was that's not something that I would have thought of, right? And as I have recipes and things like that that my kids love, and they tell me, "Oh, at Thanksgiving, if we don't have these foods, we're going to like it's revolution," right? Like
Mhm.
we're going to freak out. So, knowing that they know how to make those foods and have those recipes and that will continue the traditions you want to continue on isn't necessarily something that I even thought about would be something that would be part of like your planning as you're transitioning.
I am a huge fan of what we call legacy work. And so they say that a person dies twice, once from the physical aspect, and second, when people stop speaking your name. And so when you have something like a recipe, when you have a photo album, when you have tchotchkes or a Lego Death Star, those are things that you want to make sure are carried on so your legacy carries on for generations to come. I'm I'm super passionate about it, particularly the recipe piece, because that's a way to unite families and have them keep speaking your name.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think that's such a beautiful thing. Yeah. So I was reading in your bio that you got into this because you had been helping people personally transition. So how did you discover that this was a career choice?
Um, as I mentioned in the bio, I lost my paternal aunt right after Thanksgiving of 2023, and I lost my mom January of this year. And so for 2 years of my life, Kia, all I knew was running to chemo, running to dialysis, making sure that paperwork was in order, making sure from a caregiver perspective that things were buttoned up. And there is something called caregiver fatigue. I probably had a few mental breakdowns. But after both my mom and my aunt had passed away, there was some level of feeling fulfilled in the work that I was doing. And I hate to call it work, but that's just what came to mind first. And I wasn't feeling that my cup was getting filled in corporate America. And so I quit my job after my mom had died, not knowing anything at all about being a doula. And I came across an article, and it was written by a death doula, and everything in there. spoke to me. It felt like this is what the past 2.5 years of my life have been. And so I reached out because I can sometimes be a little type A and stalker-ish. So I reached out and said, I want to do this. Recruit me. How do I do this? Where do I begin? And I did 12 weeks of an online training course, and here we are.
Wow. So 12 weeks to become a death doula.
Hmm.
I think it takes a special kind of soul to be able to sit with that, with people, knowing that they're at the sunset of their life and their days are coming to an end, and to help them to transition with dignity. So, what is the importance of these difficult conversations that you have to have with people at this time?
So, the best example I can give you is to give you my own journey. And as I mentioned, I lost two very important women in my life. And my aunt and I were thick as thieves. She was my best friend, she was my confidant, she was my everything. And we left no conversation unsaid ever. Ever, ever. The good, the bad, the ugly. There were times that I would post certain things on social media and she thought they were directed to her, like posting about Bad Blood by Taylor Swift. Are we okay? Now, girl, why would we not be okay? And so when the time came that we realized that dialysis was no longer working, there was nothing left to be said. We looked at each other and we were both good. Sad, incredibly sad. I did not know how I was going to live my life and put one foot in front of the other. But we left no stone unturned. And watching her transition over the next week and a half was very peaceful. Uh, Again, sad, but all of those conversations over 40 plus years had been had been discussed. We discussed final wishes. We discussed what she wanted. Now, to the flip side, I love my mom. I love my mom. She was like my fourth child, though. And I did not have the white picket fence growing up, which made our relationship highly challenging. And after her diagnosis and having me turn into the parent, which unfortunately happens in these situations, there were a lot of things that we never got to resolve between us. And when I checked her into hospice, I'll never forget that night. Um, God bless the hospice team at Summa. You guys get a huge shout out from me. But her nurse pulled me into the hallway and he said, "Nick, you need to stay tonight. Your mom is not going to make it through the night." And I said, "No, I'll be here tomorrow." She's stubborn. We would call her Spicy Linda. And unfortunately, I watched her linger for a good 3 weeks. And in my heart, Kia, I know 100% it is because we did not have those conversations. And so my whole goal in going through this journey is I want to give people what I had with my aunt. I want to make sure all of those conversations are had, the good, the bad, the ugly, because I've walked through the worst that's going to happen if you don't have them. You watch that loved one struggle. That is not my goal. I want to give everyone out there that I can possibly impact that graceful transition.
Oh my goodness. I just think about that, and you do hear of the stories of people who linger, and and it's hard to watch. Like, you it's so hard to know that, maybe their soul is not ready, like at peace. And so I think having those difficult conversations is a big takeaway for me from this conversation, because you do it for both of you, I think.
It's I again, I know in her stubborn head, she thought that she was going to pull through and we were going to air all of that dirty laundry. And unfortunately, by that time, she wasn't able to communicate. And when she wasn't coherent. Um, and so for 3 weeks, it was every morning waking up, checking my phone. No news from the hospital. Going to the hospital, sitting there for 12 to 15 hours and just telling her, "It's okay. I am going to be okay. I forgive you. I want you to be at peace." And just repeating that over and over and over for 3 weeks. And so when I say I'm very passionate about wanting to give families the best transition possible, I mean it with all of my heart. With all of my heart.
Goodness, it's heartbreaking. It's a very
We're not gonna cry today.
we're
We're
not
not
going to
gonna cry.
cry to this is a tough one not to
It
cry in, though.
is. It
Because
is.
I mean, you just think about it, and when my mom passed away, it was unexpected. I mean, we knew she was going to pass away at some point, but it was unexpected because her pacemaker stopped and she was home alone,
Oh,
and she
goodness.
had a home care nurse, that would come and look after her. But she refused to live with anyone. She wanted to. Yeah, I'm the same. I tell my kids too. I'm like, you'll find me at home. Like, that's where I'll be. Um, but she wanted that, and she had the care and the support there. I lived out of state, and we had so many difficult conversations that we definitely should have and needed to have. Um, the saddest part is I think for a lot of people, for me, I'm at peace with it, but we were not on speaking terms when she passed away.
Oh, I'm so
So there were definitely difficult conversations that needed to be had, right? So that really hits. And I think part of my grieving process when she did pass away, which was a huge part of it, was the fact that I always believed that there would be time, right? Because part of it was like a tough love situation. Like, you need to get on these meds. You're not taking care of yourself. And if you don't, you're not like I can't have a relationship with you because you're not able to have a healthy relationship if you're not on these meds,
mhm.
basically. This is the gist of it, putting it nicely. And so difficult as that was, like, for me to take a stand and put my boundaries in place, because I did not have the white picket fence, and I had quite a difficult upbringing. If you have been following and watching Hot Topics Live podcast for a long time, that I am a survivor of many things. And so difficult conversations needed to be had. Some of them were had over the years, but at that point, I think there was one more that needed to happen. And so part of my process of healing and moving through the grief, because no matter what, whether you're in a fight or whether you're not on good terms or whatever, it's your mother and you love her no matter what. So it's the grief is a little bit different when you're in that circumstance than when you've been very close and you've been, you know, having this beautiful connection the whole time or most of the time. It's very different. So, I definitely understand the importance of having those conversations. And if you have the opportunity to have them, again, my mother died unexpectedly. And the irony of that, too, is that I think it was like 2 weeks to a month ish prior to that, she'd had her pacemaker switched out because they'd been recalled.
Oh
So
my
they
goodness.
changed it so that she wouldn't have the exact issue that the one that they put in caused.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So,
Oh,
yeah, difficult. It was a difficult moment in my life for sure. And then sometimes I just really think about, how much nicer it would have been if she'd have had someone like a death doula, in those moments with her. And having been able to talk to her about these things, like, "This is what I want done, this is." I mean, she did write me a letter, and she asked me to keep the family photo albums together, which I have, and I have done, right? But other than that, like, I don't know any of her recipes really. I know her roast beef recipe appears at Thanksgiving, um, once a year, which my kids are like, "If you don't make that roast beef, it's
Right.
all hell's gonna break loose."
Right.
But it's not. My mom was a wonderful cook, and I always feel sad that we don't have enough of her things. Or my father, who died when I was 7, and he died in a hospital, and his last wishes, like, I'll never know what they were. And had he had someone like a death doula, all of those things, that's a gift for the ones that are left behind. So I consider it so worth every penny of investing and having someone there to help you. I mean, there's a lot of difficult parts, right?
Oh,
So what are some of the
absolutely.
most difficult parts that people experience when you are assisting?
Oh boy, great question. I think what I've seen recently is that the giving up of control that a dying person experiences. I might be slightly type A, and that scares me of not being in control of something. And I had a family that I was working with, and there were things around the house that the dying patient wanted done, but physically could not do them. And so, as the patient and I, client and I were talking, I said, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go fix X, Y, and Z for you because I know you can't do it. Then there was something else that was taking place from a control perspective. And and it just struck me in that moment because I hadn't thought about all of the different other facets that were going on. I think the scariest part is that in life we try to control so many things. And this is something that when it starts to happen, we lose that control and it scares us. It just scares us to our core. And so one thing that I had as a takeaway is as I'm going to work with more families moving forward, I do want to make sure that that dying individual still has something that they have control over, because I think that's going to help with the transition as well.
What is something that they could have control over?
Letting them plan their services. It's a difficult conversation, and again, one that nobody ever wants to talk about, right? You don't want to think about your end of life celebration. And because sometimes families put this off after someone's died, it's, oh gosh, did they wanna be cremated? Did they wanna be laid out? What outfit, if they're gonna be laid out, what outfit did they want? So just starting with something I say as simple, but really there's 70 decisions that go into what you want your celebration of life to look like. But I think that's a good place to start, is giving that person the control of the conversation of what they want that celebration of life to look like.
That's beautiful. I remember I was living in Chicago at the time. I must have been like 22. No, I must have been older than that. So I must have been about 25 or 26, something like that. And I got a call from a local cemetery, sort of like a solicitation call, like, "Hey, have you thought about your plot yet? And like, get one here." And and I was like, "This is way too, like, this is too much." It was like, I was so young that I was like, hold on, this is really creeping me out. Like, I am super, like, I don't want to think about this right now. Right. But because that phone call happened, I did start to think about that stuff. and I've been thinking about it ever since. So I know exactly what I want, and just thinking about how important it is for people to know that, like for me to make it clear. Like I tell my oldest son, who is 19, I tell him, I do not like, unless I choose to live in a senior assisted facility where it's like an apartment and it's a community and it's like fun, and unless I choose that, leave me in my house and get me some sort of like some sort of aid to help me, just like my mom, right?
Mhm.
Because I think it's important that we do have those conversations, exactly like you're saying. And as we're getting older, everyone knows I just had a birthday and I turned 50, right? So now I'm so proud of it. So now, well, that is where a lot of my knowledge comes from, right? I can sit here and have these conversations with all these people and chime in and offer things to my coaching clients and offer a lot of valid information because I've lived experience as well as learned experience. So I love to tell people that. And also I'm holding up. So like I feel good about it. But so I've got 50 years under my belt, which is a gift. And now I'm going into the next phase of life. And that's when you really got to think about this stuff. And at this stage, I've lost friends. I've lost people I cared about unexpectedly or expected, as my darling friend is in his stage 4 terminal and cancer experience. And these are things that are important that we can't neglect, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, there's so many interesting things I think that people need to understand about this. Like, for example, you mentioned legacy work. And I think a lot of people don't really understand what that is. For example, my very best friend, she's like my soulmate. She is a hero. So shout out to Leanne. She has donated her kidney and saved a life.
Oh
Right.
my gosh.
Legitimately, he had not much time. And it out of and a bunch of them, their friend group went and got tested to see if they could be a donor. And she matched tissue, she matched everything
Oh my god.
so perfectly. Right. Like for a year went on a special diet, like did everything possible to be as healthy as possible before she took this test. Turned out to be a perfect match. Last Wednesday, she had the surgery and she has saved this
Oh
man's
my
life.
gosh, that's
I
wonderful.
know. I'm so proud of her.
Oh, shout out to Leanne.
Shout out to Leanne. And so I have also had a nephrectomy, not because I was so generous as to save someone's life, although I would have done. I had to have it removed because it was failing. But the thing about it is, I've had the surgery that she was just about to have. And so I had this information that I could share with her to help her go through this process more easily. And one of the things, how it all ties together, right? One of the things I said to her before the surgery was, you need to make plans, honey. I know this is morbid and you don't want to think about it, but accidents happen in surgery all the time. You need to make plans for in case something goes wrong, because after all, luck favors the prepared. Having it and not needing it is a win, but needing it and not having it, and you're screwed.
Absolutely. 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 You're never too young and you're never too old to start your advanced directives and make sure that that's documented, people understand your wishes. It is so important. So important.
So, if I didn't know what legacy work was, you mentioned advanced directives. Can we dive in and explain more of what legacy work is? And I think we start to understand why we need it, but we can go deeper into that as well.
So legacy work and advanced directives, they are two separate things. The legacy work is more of again the Nona's meatball recipe. You want to make sure that's written down and carried on for generations. Something else that I'm going to be starting with my legacy work is legacy reels. I met a young man who does these as a living for senior citizens, where you sit down with an individual, talk to me about one of the greatest experiences of your life, or even to the flip side, sometimes people want to talk about the not so pretty stuff. And what he does is that he then compiles this and puts it on a private YouTube channel for families to have forever and ever. And so he is bequeathing to me knowledge and training of how to set up a camera and lighting and some interview questions. And I'm going to be doing legacy interviews as part of my work as a death doula.
I
Super
love
excited.
that.
Super excited. I have a guinea my one of my closest friends, is allowing me to guinea pig this on her father this weekend, and so I have a bunch of questions, and it's just super casual. You just sit, you have a microphone, and you let the person talk about whatever they want. It's something that you don't think about. I was just recently switching offices with my son, and I came across a book, and it was The Night Before Christmas. And you open the book, and you can record your voice. So I have a recording of my mom reading The Night Before Christmas. You don't think about these things when you're going through your day-to-day life. You don't think about still hearing that loved one's voice after they're gone. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about the legacy work, because as family members are going through this process with a dying loved one, you put all of these other things to the side and you don't realize their importance until after they're gone. Just like stumbling upon this book from my mom. Not anything that was top of mind, because I'm still 11 months later kind of still processing my own grief. And so what an amazing gift that I still have that book. And so that's what I'm hoping to do with these legacy reels, is just sit down and let people share their stories of love, of loss, of the Great Depression, or whatever, so family members can have that that sound, that visual for forever.
I love that. So I actually was talking to my one of my exes, his grandma, so lovely. She is from one of the native tribes. And so, as you may or may not know this, but tribal information gets lost as the elders pass away. And so the younger generations lose so much culture and stories and music and songs. Like, it's so devastating. And so when I was finding this out, because I didn't know, I said to her, I said, we need to record you. You're an elder, like she is in her 80s, but she is just like such a mover and shaker, you wouldn't even know. But I at some point she's going to slow down. And when that point happens, it would be a very good moment to record just from and she would sit and tell me, like, she'd talk to me about her life and tell me about her mother and her father and her youth and all of that and show me the pictures and stuff. It's so lovely. But I just kept thinking, there's so much more knowledge. For example, she got to go to a big tribal event when she was younger, and there was an elder there who knew like every song. And for different tribes, because different tribes have different songs, and it's very intricate, all of this knowledge. And he was older and he was going to die. So he taught her some songs. And I thought, well, imagine that. Like, look what was lost when he passed away, because no one thought to create something exactly like what you're talking about.
It
Podcasts can do this,
it just
but
warms my heart. It honestly, I I am counting down until Saturday because, not only because I'm excited to try it, but I know that I'm giving her a gift, and I'm giving I call them my bonus nieces. I'm giving my bonus nieces a gift that they will have forever.
I agree with that. Like, that is such a beautiful thing, and I think everybody should do it. Everybody should do it. Everybody should have someone interview them
Yes, yes. You
and
just
tell their story.
exactly, and then generations from now, 50 years from now, my great grandkids might be able to pop onto YouTube and see this and say,
Mhm.
"My great grandma, she was kind of a badass. I like it. I like it."
Oh my gosh, it gave me chills because I always think about like I love doing genealogy work, right? And rediscovering my ancestors. And so I was thinking to myself, it's so nice to be when they have a grave and you can go and visit the grave and you think, "Oh, this is like my 8 times back great grandparent," right?
Yes, yes.
And now we have this technology, when you read, like, you piece together their life from their census records and like news articles or whatever you can find, and then you're like kind of get a picture of who they are. But now we have this technology. And so just like you're saying, people can go back on YouTube and see their loved one. You just actually made me remember that I was also very close to my kid's dad's grandma. She died a few years ago and she was 93. And before she died, we actually lived in Miami for a little while. So we got to spend like the last few years of her life with her. And my kid's dad, he went and he didn't film her on video, which I'm a little sad about, but he did all these audio recordings, right? And he was like literally interviewing her, like, "Grandma, what was it like growing up? And what was like, what was your first love, grandma?" And like asking her all these questions, or Abuelita, as we called her. And so when she immediately passed away, all of his aunts and everybody, like, no one wanted to hear it because it was like, to hear her voice was so painful,
Mm,
like, initially. But some years later, and like now, it's such a treasure that
it's a
he
gift.
made all of these recordings
Absolutely.
and has all of this information about her. Absolutely a beautiful concept. We should all be doing it.
It's Kia, I can't express enough how excited I am about this weekend. I just think it's gonna be amazing, and I look forward to being able to share that gift with other families that I'm working with as well.
So this is part of legacy work. So if I'm thinking of legacy work, just to make it clear for everybody, I'm thinking of things that are passed down and therefore, so like my book of recipes, for example,
Mhm.
or the family photo albums, or a little memoir journals, or these reels, these videos that will exist on YouTube, right? Those kinds of things. But I think the other part, so we have legacy, and this is super important to do for yourself and your loved ones. But then we also have what we were talking about, the advanced directives. And like, I
Correct.
had my friend like make out your will and make out all of the important details, like go and make sure your husband is able to access your bank account. And right, like, so if something happens to you in surgery, he can withdraw your funds, right? Like, there are these other types of details that need to be considered. So what can you share with us about that?
What could I not share? The timing of this is amazing. I actually just sat down with my mother-in-law last night. None of their documents have been updated in probably 20 something years. And uh, it's mission critical. There's a couple things that I think are super important that your listeners should keep top of mind when they're dealing with a loved one that has a terminal diagnosis. So I'll kind of squirrel a little bit, but I'm going to go over some super helpful information. Um, The last thing that you want to do when you're grieving a loved one is deal with probate. I know that probate is there for a reason. Love, respect it. But when you're grieving a dying loved one, the last thing you want to be doing is hiring attorney and navigating the challenges of probate. So, how do we avoid probate when we're going through end of life process and beyond? A house and a car that you do not have a loan on, you want to make sure that you update those titles to reflect transfer on death. That is the way to avoid having to go to probate. So, again, if you have a car in your garage that does not have a loan, head down to your local title bureau and get that put into transfer on death. So, for example, my mom had a beautiful tiny little Corolla and it was paid off. And we went to the title bureau and had that listed as transfer on death to me after she passed. So, super easy process. She just needed my social security number, and we were able to get that taken care of. She had a house. And so we worked with one of our local title companies, and that was updated to be transfer on death to me. Now, she had a will, nothing specifically spelled out per se. And so by doing those two quick, easy things, we were able to avoid having to go to probate after she had died. Now, as it relates to um, advanced planning directives, I can tell you that 15, 20 years ago, um, my living will said, please do all extenuating measures to keep me alive. I have kids. I want to be here for all of those moments. I can tell you 30 years from now, if I am blessed to still be here, I'm probably going to be frail. Now, unless you work out as much as I do, but I'm more than likely going to be frail. And if, God forbid, I have some type of traumatic event happening to me in the hospital, I don't want them cracking my ribs. I don't want them performing crazy life-saving measures because I know my quality of life at 85, 90, frail, um, after they crack ribs, my quality of life for the next few weeks that I might have after that will probably not look the same as they did when I was 20 or 30 something and started putting into place my advanced directives. So those are things that you want to think about, that you want to make sure you either work with an attorney. A lot of doctors' offices also have paperwork that they can help you fill those out. But those two things, I think making sure that your house and a car that is paid off, that you have transfer on death to a loved one to avoid probate, super important. And also making sure you have your advanced directives in place. What do you want those end of life, life saving measures to look like and not look like? Um, from a financial side of the house, you also want to make sure that you have a financial power of attorney in place. And one thing that I was talking with my mother in law about last night was I'm sure that her husband, my father in law, is her financial power of attorney. And what I said was, let's kind of walk through worst case scenario. Something happens to my father in law, and there's no secondary POA listed. So you want to pull out those documents and make sure that from a healthcare power of attorney perspective, financial healthcare power or financial power of attorney perspective, you want to make sure that those are all up to date, that those individuals that are listed first position and secondary position are still in your life. Um, Also, same with any type of IRAs, 401ks, life insurance policies. You want to make sure that you're looking at those beneficiaries. Life circumstances change and you might have someone listed on your IRA. Could be an ex-wife, could be an ex-husband, could be an ex-boyfriend or partner that you're no longer with. And if you don't take the time to update those and something tragic happens, those are legal documents, and those individuals would be the beneficiaries for those policies. I've unfortunately seen it happen. In my HR days, we had an individual that had been divorced for a few years. Unfortunately, he passed away, and his ex-wife was listed as the beneficiary for his 401k. I could not do anything to help the situation. It's a binding document. And so, as you're navigating, whether you're helping a loved one who has received a terminal diagnosis, or if you're listening to this podcast and you have that aha moment of, oh my gosh, I got divorced, and one of the things I never fixed was my life insurance policy. Please take a moment and protect those that you love.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it brings to mind one of my previous guests, and I did this whole episode about financial abuse. And she is also a veteran from the Navy, like me. And I had her on my other podcast, the Female Veterans Podcast, first. But I wanted to bring her on this one to talk about how financial abuse can sneak up on you and the things that can happen. Well, long story short, okay, here's the tea. Her husband ended up unaliving himself, right? And it was like it was going to be like a whole unaliving her and him situation, but fortunately she didn't go. And, so like the news was there, the police was there. It was a whole situation in Florida. So after he unfortunately passed away, right? Um, People came out of like his ex-wife's parents came out of the woodwork. One of her adult other son came out of the like it was like all of these people converged on his assets. And then some of the things were a little bit unclear. So you got to be so specific on who gets what and how things are supposed to go and who's in charge of executing this and all of that stuff. You should be so clear, because the saddest thing in the world, and this is a perfect example of it, and I've seen it many times in my life, especially around money, is that the claws come out, honey. People get crazy after you pass away, and they want the house and they want the 401k and they want the life insurance, and they will fight tooth and nail. And the last thing you really want is people that you love having their more base instincts come to the surface behind money. I mean, this poor guest of mine, it destroyed her family. Like all of those relationships. I think she doesn't have a relationship with her son anymore because of what he tried to do in order to and it just gets cutthroat. And you don't want that to be what's happening after you've transitioned, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't stress enough making sure that you have your wishes specifically outlined. Because to your point, death unfortunately has a tendency to bring out the worst in people. And for as much as you try to avoid having that happen, you can have all of your ducks in a row and something will still come up. But it is super important to make sure that these documents are in place. Again, the transfer on death, the will, spelling out information, making sure your beneficiary designations are all up to date. Do what, again, death is not fun to talk about. We kicked that off when we started an hour ago. It's not fun to talk about, but having these conversations now just makes that transition so much as easy as it possibly can be.
And I think protects those that you love and are already going to be going through so much with you leaving them and transitioning on.
Mhm.
So, okay, I have just a couple of more questions for you because I know we're just about at an hour. But one thing that I think is really important that I wanted to ask is what is something that people actually get wrong about what you do?
First thing is that I kill people.
Ooh,
Mhm.
oh,
Mm,
we're not Dr. Kevorkian. If you don't know who that
that's
is, Google it.
that is what people think at first. Not only for myself as a death doula, but hospice as well. I promise you, I am not out there killing anybody. So, and second, medical aid in dying where I live in Northeast Ohio is not legal. And so, no, I am not killing your grandma, I promise. Um, Second is that I am a replacement to hospice. No. Um, Again, I love hospice. I My goal is to work alongside of them. Um, Especially when individuals are choosing to die at home. Hospice comes in typically 1 to 2 times a week. They check the meds, they're checking vitals, and a lot of this is left to the family to be the heavy lifters. And so again, I'm not replacing them. I'm in addition to hospice. But yeah, typically the first thing I get is you kill people. No, 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 I don't.
Okay, so that's okay, I didn't think that, but I could see how
Mhm.
people will think that. And actually, in my opinion, actually think assisted suicide should be a thing. I think if you want to I think it's terrible that it's not allowed. I think if you get to a point, and this is something I learned in conversations with my friend whose partner is, coming to end of life. He's fighting, thank goodness, but it's hard when you're dealing with cancer, as everyone knows. And one of those things is like what happens, and I learned so much from her through this process that they're going through of, when someone doesn't, they're ready and they don't want to live anymore. Like they're in so much pain. They've been fighting for whatever illness it is. They know that it's ultimately going to take their life. They're very frail. They're very tired. They're in so much pain and they're just ready, like they've come to peace with it, they're ready, but they're forced to not have that as a an option,
Choice. Mhm.
right? And I just think about like my cute little Pekingese Missy, who was 13 years old and who had stomach cancer and Alzheimer's and cried every single night, even though I fed her bacon and steak every day for a week because I knew she was going to get put down.
Oh.
Right. So, and allowed everyone to say their goodbyes and everything like that. But she was suffering, and it was the humane thing to do to end her suffering. So, if my dog could have that, if I wanted it and I can't have it, this is just my opinion, it should be my choice. So I think if a death doula did help people transition in that way, I think it would be kind and humane. But it's good to understand that you're not going to be helping anyone. You're not killing anybody. It's
I'm
good to know.
not pushing your wheelchair into a frozen lake, I promise. I'm not gonna cook dried out corned beef and have you choke on it. No, no, no.
Yeah.
But I could talk for hours on medical aid in dying. I think to your point, it's death with dignity, and but that could be a whole other podcast conversation. It's something that even as a Catholic, I do believe should be a choice. I mean, it's about dying with dignity. And when you watch someone die with cancer or Alzheimer's or ALS, it's just heart-wrenching, heart-wrenching, heart-wrenching. And so I you're preaching to the choir on the support.
I feel you. So I think they do that in Switzerland. They say that's the rumor of how Tina Turner, she decided that, you know, I always
My queen, I
right?
love her,
Right?
I love
So
her.
I once saw in a movie, what was it called? Soylent Green. I think it was. If you don't know that movie, you should check out Soylent Green. It's
I'm
crazy.
gonna
It's
have
actually
to.
very relevant to the times we're living in.
I'm writing it
Actually,
down.
actually, I saw it in high school, so and it was old then, so take that with a grain of salt. But in the movie, right, there were these centers where people would go and they would sort of just like um watch a movie. I think it's been in other movies too. Something else is coming to mind. Oh, I can't think of the name of it, but it's Colin Farrell. Uh, shoot, I can't think of that one. Okay, it'll come to me later. If you know which movie I'm talking about, where he's like the cop, and who's the girl who plays the vampire? She's so awesome. She's in that movie too. Shoot, I can't think of her name either. I don't know why.
Now I'm gonna be Googling.
You know what it is? The actress, you'll know who it is. She is very badass. She plays a vampire. She's in love with a werewolf. She wears black.
Is it Kate Beckinsale?
Yes, thank you. It's Kate
Welcome.
Beckinsale. Okay, so these two are in the movie together, right? I love this movie. I don't know why I can't think of the name of it, and because I'm old.
Oh, stop it!
I'm
Stop
just
it!
kidding. I'm kidding. But like, so I think I haven't taken enough nitric oxide or my lion's mane today. That's all. Um, so did I say nitrous or nitric? Because I meant nitric, just saying. um
What's going on over here?
okay, we're not partying over here, I swear. Okay, so so in this movie, like he wakes up and from he goes to have this experience and he wakes up and they are he finds out like she's not actually his wife, she's actually an agent. He's got to run from her and they're all after him and it's very futuristic. Um shoot, Colin Farrell. Crap.
I'll be, I
Oh my
promise,
god.
I'll be fine.
I'm gonna Google it right now. Actually, I'm gonna because it's gonna drive me crazy.
All you gotta
So
do is put Colin Farrell, Kate Beckinsale, and
totally, it's gonna come right up.
it will.
So, anyways, in this movie, that's another one where they sit and they have these images, but it's it's one of those things where you at the end of life you choose to die and they have this whole setup where you go in and you can just sort of they give you something and you kind of drift off to sleep but you're watching like you can pick what you want to watch and and sort of drift off. Total Recall, that's what it is, the new one. So it's not the old
Oh,
one, it's the new
okay,
one. Okay, it's
okay.
just this sort of thing where you kind of like go in and you watch, you have this visual experience, but this is at end of life, right? And I think they have places like that in Switzerland or Sweden or somewhere like that.
I'm pretty sure Switzerland. Now we do have some states here in the US, that do offer medical aid in dying. You can research a way. I think there's 15 right now that are on board. There's some stipulations around it, so if that's something you're interested in, totally Google and find out more information about it. If you live in a state that doesn't currently have it, um, trust me, there's organizations out there that are currently advocating for states that don't. So if you're very passionate about it, I would strongly suggest finding one of these organizations and volunteering your time.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think it would be so lovely to just be able to say, "Oh, I just want to watch beautiful sunsets." I want to watch old school MTV when they played actual music videos. Like, you just make your choice and go your way. I think that's empowering and I think it's classy and humane. So I have one more question for you before we wrap it up because I want to be respectful of your time. Um, I have to ask you, of your experiences being a death doula, is there a story that really touched you and stands out to you the most that you could share?
Mhm. My most recent experience, um, here is this person on their deathbed and we're having some conversations and drifting in and out of sleep, but definitely in pain. And this individual put her hand to my face and told me outside of her kids and Jesus, I was the most beautiful thing that she'd ever seen. And here is someone who is getting ready to transition, and in pain and in and out of consciousness and dealing with all of these other things, and took a moment to muster up strength to touch me. And I will never forget that as long as I live. I left that house, Kia, saying out loud to myself, I am where I am supposed to be. I am where I
Ooh.
am supposed to be.
Okay, we're not crying. We
No,
said
we
we're
said
not
that
crying.
earlier.
But that was emotional. It reminded me of, during my time in the military, I was in the hospital corps, and when I came through A school, we had to do a residency, and we all got, put at different parts of the hospital, and I went to the senior ward. And so I actually really loved taking care of it. I took care of an amputee, I took care of lots of seniors, and I enjoyed it actually. I actually for a while thought I might do that once for a career. But then this happened and it kind of stopped me in my tracks. I had a patient, Mr. McNamee, and he had these decubitus ulcers, which if you don't know what that is, they're like open sores from laying in bed. He wasn't ambulatory, he couldn't walk. He couldn't get up, so he was constantly laying down. And so they had to be cleaned and packed and dressed and all of these things all the time. And one of the nurses I felt as I was like watching, because I was supposed to be watching, was just being so rough with him. Like it felt to me that she was desensitized to her role, and so I asked her if I could do it to learn, right? And so she said, sure, because, she had a million things to do. So I took over doing that for him and I did it every day. And took over a lot of his care actually. And I had my own, I had like four patients that I took care of. They were my patients. And so I had been doing that for a while and talking to him. And in his room, that he was cared about. And this is what I love. And I did this for my mom when she would come to and be in the hospital when she would visit me. And I encourage everyone to do this for your loved ones if they're in a facility of any sort. He had pictures all over the walls. And you knew people cared about him. And I think it's important to note that when you have a loved one in the hospital, everyone, all the staff should know how much you care about that person, right? And so I would talk to him about the people in the pictures and, about his time in the military. And I would tell him about, being in school and I was about to graduate. And I'd have these conversations with him, although he could write on a piece of paper or whatever, but he was nonverbal. And so sometimes he would write like things down, or mostly it was just me talking to him, just like filling the time and just being like, "Oh, is that your daughter? She's so beautiful," and like this and that. And so one day I went in and they were cleaning his room, and
Ugh.
yeah, and his kids were there, like packing up the pictures and stuff like that. And everyone was very sad and I didn't know. So I'm just coming in and I see the scene and I'm devastated. Like this is why I didn't go into the because unlike you, who I think is so impressive and this ability to meet death with people, which is a very hard thing to do, for me as a 19-year-old girl, it was crushing. And but the beautiful thing was that his kids were like, "Oh, you are Baker." And because obviously I had my name tag on, I'm in uniform, right? And I said, yes. And they said that, thank you so much. Like our father told us about how kind you were and how gentle you were with him. Thank you so much. And they hugged me like, and it was like, I've never seen them in life, like just on the pictures, right? And it was such a moving moment for me that I'll never forget it.
Rightfully
because
so. I mean, here they are in their time of grieving, and they actually stop to take a moment to acknowledge your grief as well. You lost an individual, and they recognized, what you brought to him in his last days.
ugh, I'll never forget it. That will be, and when I'm dying, one of the things that I see in my last scenes
Ugh.
of life, I'm sure, because it meant so much to me. But so I have a lot of respect, and it's just such a beautiful thing what you do. And the fact that I know that there are so many doulas that have channels, and they speak, and now people will have this from you that they can watch, and they can see, what you do for people, and how important it is to have someone like you doing this work.
I was asked recently if if I knew what a doula was when I was in the process of losing my mom, if I would have hired someone. And without hesitation, Kia, I can tell you absolutely. While I'm great at navigating the difficult conversations and whatnot, I think I needed an extra level of support. I needed that layer for my mom and I. I try to live by no regrets. Um, I took amazing care of her, but I think a doula would have probably helped her and I, helped the 2 of us, kinda navigating that final transition.
Because it's so hard. So all the help you can get, I think, is a beautiful thing that you're doing. So before we go, I know that there's something that you want to share, about a little offer that you have coming up for people who
Yes.
follow along with you.
Yes, thank you so much. So first, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this time. I have really greatly, immensely appreciated it. You do an amazing job of asking questions and getting to the heart of things. Also, I just want to thank you for your service. And to all of our veterans out there tomorrow, thank you for everything that you've done. So from a promotional perspective, I recently met with an organization called DocuGuardian, and I picture this as a vault. Any documents, any wishes related to end of life can be stored on this secure site. They have an app. Um, and what I think, or why I feel it is so important. So we talked about the advanced directives, right? Um, power of attorney, what you want your wishes to be if you're in distress. Okay, I might have this document sitting on my desk at my house. I'm traveling. I'm in Florida on the beach. I fall, I break my hip, and some other bad things. And my family rushes me to the hospital. My husband knows my end of life wishes. I don't want to be hooked up to a machine, but unfortunately, I'm out of state. And that document is sitting in my messy Dunder Mifflin office. DocuGuardian, you can upload those critical documents and have it available to you on an app wherever you go. So if you're traveling and God forbid something happens to you, you can have a proxy that will have access to your information. So for me, it could be my husband, it could be one of my kids, that they would be able to go onto this app and pull up my wishes. So the doctor knows exactly what we're dealing with. And so there is a promo code. It's Death Doula Nicole. It's through, again, DocuGuardian. Feel free to reach out to me directly for more information on them. As you could see, all of my contact info from a social media perspective is out there. And reach out. I think it's an amazing organization. And like I said, I talked with the owner, and this was formed out of her experience with dealing with a loved one out of state. End of life wishes weren't readily available, and it just created a little bit of chaos. And so her paying it forward was starting this company. So I'm super excited to share it with not only your followers, but any of mine as well. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Okay, outstanding. So, so there's the promo code. If you want to learn more, you should reach out directly, like she said, right here. She's on Instagram, she's on Facebook. You can reach out in either of those places. You can learn more here. So, you can reach out if you're interested in services, if for someone you or someone you know who's interested, and find out more about what she does and her and everything. So, I mean, I think it's incredibly important, the work that you're doing. I cannot say
Yeah.
that enough. I mean, to help people, the loved ones, and the person who is transitioning through this like penultimate moment of life, is just, it takes someone with an extraordinary heart. And so, thank you so much for what you do. And thank you so much for being a guest on Hot Topics Live podcast. I'm so grateful to you. Um, and with that, we're going to wrap it up. So I will put you in the green room. If you have time for a proper goodbye, I'll be done in just a minute. I'm going to wrap up the show, and then we can say goodbye. But if not, I'll understand and I'll connect with you again soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so, so much.
Isn't she darling? I think so. Beautiful glassy skin, girl. Okay, like the skincare is real for that one. Okay, so let's talk about what I have for you. Okay, as if that wasn't enough, because if you take all that information that you just gained today, you will have so much wonderful information to plan yours or a loved one's final stages. And honestly, if you're in my age group or even younger, your parents are getting older, your grandparents are getting older. This is just important information. Okay. So, with that, I'm going to remind you that you can follow me on all these different places, get lots of information. You can see all the clips. If the long form content is too long for you because you have ADHD, watch the clips or the shorts. Okay. Hot Topics Live podcast on Instagram and TikTok has lots of the shorts and reels. You can follow along my pinup journey, right? So if you like pretty pictures, classy, pretty pictures, you can check out my pinup. You can do that on my Instagram at Creativity, right? It's me. Those are my covers. I haven't done a photo shoot in a while, but I am planning one. So stay tuned for that. I put behind the scenes and my stories, and I just love doing all that stuff for you and for me, first and foremost. And so drop me a comment. As always, if you're watching live, drop a comment. If you've made it to this far in the episode, you're one of my tribe. So go ahead and subscribe. We're doing better. More of you are watching and returning subscribed now. So thank you for that. I appreciate you beyond words. It's hard out here. So if you're not talking about politics, which I'm not going to do, but I have very strong opinions about, okay? If you're not talking about that, it's really hard out here, okay, on that algorithm. So like, share, subscribe. Somebody needs this information. Share it with them. Okay. Right now, I am going to do my special little thing I do for you. We're going to play a little card game. These are called Soul Truth Awareness cards, and they're by Brianne Hovey. These are daily questions that will transform your life. And as a coach, I've been coaching since 2019. I'm making some new things for you. But I'm all about transformation, and self-development and healing. So, and if you're watching the Hot Topics Live podcast, remember that this podcast exists to remind you that you are amazing and you deserve to be living your best life possible. And this podcast is out here aiming to help you do just that. So without further ado, take a deep breath for me, honey. Let's breathe. Breath work is the key. Take a deep breath and hold it. You can put your hand on your heart like I do and just center your energy. Okay, let's do that for a second. Just breathe. And I'm going to shuffle up these cards because I want whatever comes out, whatever your message is, to be random. Okay, so whatever flies out is a message meant to find you, just you today. Okay, it can be from, if you believe in God or source or the universe or whatever you believe in, this is an open and accepting safe zone. And that's a message for you from that sort of special energy. And you got two cards today. I'm running out of batteries, so I'm going to try to do this quick. All right, what do I believe about money? Do my beliefs match my dreams? Ooh, that's a good one. How does your relationship with money affect your current situation? Do you believe you're worthy? Do you believe you're capable? Do you trust money? Does money trust you? Money is an energy. It ebbs and flows. You are worthy of it, and it's your responsibility to heal your relationship with money as a part of your waking up to the whole of you and your purpose. Today's soul action: take a deep dive in your belief system around money. Are there any beliefs you need to upgrade to create the results you are wanting most in your life? Write out your money story. Is it time for a sacred shift? What will your next chapter be? Fill in the blank. Write this down. I am grateful to money because, and then you just put your answer in there. It's your first one. I think that one's for me too, because I'm starting this new coaching package in February. Don't worry, I'll put everything in the description box soon. It's not ready yet, but when it is, all the links are always in the description box for everything that I'm doing and offering. Okay. This one is: how can I be more kind to myself and offer more grace in this very moment? Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, let's see. Growing our self love is a medicine to this world's broken heart. Ooh, needed. Okay. When you heal, we all heal. When you give yourself more grace, you are able to give the world more grace. Today's soul action: look at yourself with a grace filter. You are meant to be in this moment of your life. Release the inner critic and fill in the hole with your soul's truth that you are infinite, you are loved, and you are already there, boo. Okay. With that, that's a wrap. Stay tuned for Dating After Divorce, the final episode for now of that limited series. And stay tuned for another great episode next week. I have so much goodness coming your way. So thank you for your subscriptions. Thank you for watching and spending your time with me. I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.